Okay, so today we're going to play around with hashes some more and look at some of the other methods that we can do with a hash. This is the hash documentation off of rubydoc.org. This is all of the methods that I can execute on a hash, and there's a bunch of them. So one of them I wanted to talk about was this has key, which is a useful one, and it will be very useful for next week's project. So let's just show you what it is first. Let's go to has key. What it does is, given a hash, I can query the hash to see if a key exists in the hash. Now remember that a key has to be unique in a hash. There cannot be this duplicate keys. That's your index, that's your room key into the data that's stored in the value portion of that slot in the hash. So the keys have to be unique. I cannot have duplicate keys. So sometimes it's useful to see if a key is already there before you create a new element in the hash. So how might I tell if Florida is a key in my states array here? So my hash is called states.has_key, and IntelliSense figures that out for me. And I pass it a value to this method of the key that I want to look for. So I want to look for Florida as a string. Then that is going to return what value? So let's go look at the documentation here. You can tell by how it's defined. This arrow says this will return a true or false. Also, by convention in Ruby, we make Boolean methods end with a question mark. The question mark tells you that this method is going to return a Boolean value, a true or a false. So when you read it, you say, does my states has a key? And you raise your voice a little bit. It's a question, and it's a true or false, right? That's all it is. Does my states have a key? Right? So think about that. When you see a question mark, it always means that we're going to have a Boolean expression. Now, just putting a question mark on a method name does not guarantee that it's going to return that. That's a naming convention to make it easier for you to understand what the method returns. Okay? So if I were to do just this, states has key, what's going to be output? Nothing, because I didn't print it to the screen, right? So I'm going to say puts, and we'll run this little puppy here, and I get a value of true. Florida is a key in the existing states hash. How about if I put states.has key of Zimbabwe? Right? Does the United States own Zimbabwe yet? Well, maybe partially. So I got Patus. Patus is wrong. You've got to spell Patus right. All right, so I get a false. Zimbabwe is not a cell, not a key in my states array, states hash, sorry. Everybody see that? That makes sense? So for the next week's assignment, which I'll go over tomorrow, you're going to need this type of a method for that. No, it does not matter. What is the difference between a single and a double quote? In Ruby, what is the difference? I get this question all the time. I want to make sure you get this. The only difference is that a double quote will interpret escape characters, and the single quote will not. So if I put a /n in here, that is going to be an actual slash character and an n character. if I put it inside of double quotes, it's going to turn that into a carriage return line feed, an end of line character. So a double quote means that it's going to search through the string looking for escape characters. This /n is an escape character like a /t, right? /t would be a tab. It converts that into that specific character and puts it into the string. Single quote does not. So it just assumes everything in here is literal. I also cannot put things like the interpolation string in here for a value like state, because it doesn't interpret that if it's in single quotes. I have to have it in double quotes. So there is probably a nanosecond faster to write in single quotes unless you have escape characters in it, because it doesn't scan the characters as it's building the string. So it is a little bit faster, but it's so minute that it doesn't make any difference. All right? Does that make sense? So either one, these will work the same way, same thing. All right, any questions on has key? All right. There are other methods, like I can check to see if there's a value. Is there a value is the same thing. It looks at the other side of the hash. I can say, does put states.has value of a string of, and why am I using strings? Because my keys and my values are strings. All right? So if I say state has a value of WA, what is that going to return? What type of value is this going to return? A true or false, a Boolean expression. So if I run this, I've got another true here. So there is a value in my hash with a value of Washington. Now, can I have multiple values that are the same in a hash? Sure. The only thing that has to be unique is the key side of the equation. I can have multiple values that, multiple values that are the same. All right? Yes? Sure. Well, what you can, but what does this return? A true or false. So if there is a true or false method, since it's a Boolean expression, I can't think of any offhand. No, you'd have to do it in two statements. Yeah, because this returns a Boolean, and I don't know of any Boolean dot values. We can look and see if there are any. Well, states is what value? What type of data is states? It's a hash, so I could do hashy type stuff with it. So it doesn't make sense in this case to chain too many of these methods together. It would in others, maybe.
Just because when I ran it at first, it gave me false because I didn't notice that they were all.
Right. So you could do something like this if you had a state that you were checking, and it was Washington. Then I could use in here state.upcase. Right? That's different. That's going to take a string. I can do stringy stuff with it. I can upcase it. So now it's an upcase string, and it's going to then check that string value to see if it has a key in my states hash. So that would work. That's the same kind of a thing. All right. What is it useful for? Well, you're pushing me to look at the next assignment. So The next assignment requires that we have a hash that has a unique 3-digit key. And so when you add a new product to this product's hash, you have to generate a new 3-digit random number and add that to the hash. You don't want to generate a number that you've already have in your hash already. So we have to look to see, does this new number that I came up with exist in my hash? Because I don't want to overwrite that value. If it doesn't exist, then I can add the new product using that number. If it does exist, I need to generate a completely different random number until I get to the point where it doesn't exist in my hash. That's the idea for that. Does that make sense? We'll talk about that when we get to the assignment tomorrow. All right, so I can do has value. There's a lot of methods in here that are useful. ToString, update, all of these are useful. And a lot of these are similar to the array methods that you're using today, like delete, delete if. Those are all very useful. And you're going to need to have, for your array, you're going to have to be able to delete a value in the array. So that might be a method that you would use. So that leads me to the next thing is that the hash and the array both include a module called Enumerable. All right, Enumerable is a bunch of code that is included in the hash definition that adds more methods for me. So all of these methods are also available to both a hash and an array. So if you look at some of these, we've used them. The each is in there. I've got find and find all I want to show you right now, which are really useful. Min, we've used max on an array. Remember how to do that? So if we did our hash, if I said puts states dot max let's see what that comes out to be. See if that even works. So my state sub max prints out the value Wyoming and Y. So I got two values here. I got the key and the value, both. The states.max gives you that right away. And states.min, why was it Wyoming? Okay, and in this case,
because it was alphabetical, or
it's because it's alphabetical, yeah.
And it starts with the A, then.
Yeah, if I moved Wyoming up here, out of order, and I run this again, I still get Wyoming because it's not the last one in the list. Oh. I knew there was something wrong there. Let's run it again. Sorry. I still get Wyoming, not because it's the last one in the list, but because that is the last alphabetically. WY, it's sorting it alphabetically to come up with the last and the min. Now, if I had numbers in here, it would find the smallest number of the key and the largest number of the keys. Min and max would do that. The other nice one that Enumerable gives us is I can say min max. All right, let's see what that does. Let's take these out. And that gives me the minimum key and value and the maximum key and value all in one method. Now, it returns it. Let's look at the documentation so you can understand how to read the docs more often. The min-max. If I look at this, it returns what type of value here? An array containing the minimum value and the maximum value. So if I type minmax.inspect, which we haven't done enough of in here, that's going to tell me, it will print it out how it thinks it's looking in memory, all right? So it'll actually give us these array symbols like this, and instead of just printing it, which gives us a false value, I get an array containing the key and the value for the min, and an array containing the key and the value for the max. And all of those are inside of an array, so this is called a double array, an array containing additional arrays. Does that make sense? Isn't that cool? Does that all for me? Sure. I'm not sure it will be useful for you, but you can for this assignment. Because, why? If you do a min and a max on your, let's see, do I have like an array here? No, cannot use a double array. No, you're going to have two arrays side by side.
Well, yeah, but for part of it, like have the two arrays, and then for part of it, use the double array to access certain information.
The min and the max?
No, just to access. Put the two arrays into a double array.
No. No. No, I don't want you to do that. All right. Where was I? Arrays. Hashes. All right. I wanted to show you some other cool ones. A method called find, which takes a hash, and it runs a block of code against every element in the hash, every key and value in the hash. So let's see if we can get this to work. So I can say my states.find all. Remember where we were trying to do the all the states that started with a W? We did that, or an A up here like this. So I'm going to do the same kind of a thing, but it's going to do some of the code for me. So I'm going to get a state and an abbreviation, and inside the code, let's see, that's not right. These have to be curly braces because it's a block of code. Inside of this, I'm going to compare. I'm going to only return values that match this Boolean expression. So what was my Boolean expression up here? Does state sub 0 equal A? So let's return all the A's. All right, so my Boolean expression is going to be evaluated for every element in my states hash, and it's going to return, if I look at the documentation, it's going to return another object. So it depends on what got passed in. So let's see, let's assign that a value, my A states, and then let's print that out. Puts A states. All right, so there it printed out Alabama, Alaska, American Samoa, Arizona, and Arkansas. With that one line of code, this returned a value, and this, let's see what this value actually is. Let's inspect it. And I'm getting an array, a double array, containing each key value pair that I had here. So I got an array of all of the key value pairs from that one statement. And a lot of people that did the really small histogram, you can use this find all. That find all was used for that type of a shrinking down of code. All right. Any questions on that? If I just do a find, it's going to give me the first one that it found. It's going to stop when it found the first one that evaluated this Boolean expression to be true. So it's looping through all the states. As soon as it finds one, it quits and returns back an array of the key and the value pairs. So this works the same way if I have a bunch of numbers. I can do a similar concept with the find. If I say puts numbers.find, where all of the values that num is going to be inserted with every element in here, all of the values num is greater than 30. Something like that. All right, so it's going to find the first value in the array that matches this Boolean expression. So it found one that's as 34. Right? If I want to find all of the numbers that match that Boolean expression, I would change it to find all, and this is going to return what type of data now? What is the data that this will be printing out? An array, okay, very good. So I'm going to have an array of those. If I type .inspect on the end of this, you'll see that it actually is an array. It's an array containing all of the values from my numbers array that were greater than 30. Isn't that sweet? Nice little piece of code there. Now, is that going to help you in this assignment that's due Thursday? Maybe. Maybe. All right. It doesn't help too much because if you want to print out all the people that are older than 30, this would give you all the ages that are older than 30. But how does that tie back to the name? Because I want to print the name and their age at the same time. I'd have to figure out what that index is. And that gets a little more complicated than just doing it in a while loop. There are some methods like this, like I can say puts the numbers.index of 44, and what is that? What do you think that's going to return? Okay, it should return 4. It does, because the index where 44 was found in this array was at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so that's a possibility, but what if I have two people of the same age? Doesn't work. I'm only going to get the first one it found. So those aren't typically useful for this assignment.
Well, if you do that, it's going to throw it into an array, and then your index position would be kind of
Yeah, your index is, this is a new array now where the index 0 is 44. I can't then say print out ages sub 0 because that's a different guy. It's a different person, so it doesn't work for that. So you're better off doing the while loops like we did up here, or the each loops like we did up here. Okay, any questions on any of this? Isn't this fun?
You said yesterday that while loop will work outside that or with hashes variable.
Right. Because what do you iterate on? How can we index the hash? We can't index it by a number, right? We can't say hash sub, well, unfortunately we can. I can say puts states sub 0. Let's see what that actually comes out to be. Nothing. Because, yeah, see, we don't, I was thinking of something else. The state sub 0, that might be our counter, right, that we're going to increment. Or this could be counter, something like that. That's going to increment from 1 to 100. I can never look at state sub number because my indexes, my keys are strings. So I can't index over strings either. So that's why we use the each method. It does it for us. There is a hash dot length, sure. I can put states dot length. That tells you how many times to iterate, but then how do you get the value out of there? I have 59 states. See, even President Obama was wrong. There's now 59. Isn't that great? Probably because I messed it up, whatever. So you can say while what is less than states.length. What would we do? Okay, counter. And I might set my counter to what? All right, so now how do I get the value of my states in here to play with? Right, so if I do state sub counter, what is counter here? It's an integer. I can't use an integer to index my states array. So I can't get at the data there. Right. Yeah, it's just not. Yeah. Unless your keys were numbers, which is why then you just use an array instead of a hash. So. I can do that in an array. So this doesn't make sense. That's why there's really no nice way that I can think of anyway to use that. No, that's good. That's a good question. Excellent question. So you got to use the dot each. That just works really good. There's also an each value and an each key. So if I just want to put, I can say states dot each value do, and then I have my goalpost. I'm going to just get the abbreviation then. And I can put out the abbrev. And that will print out all the values in the array. Or I can change this to key. And that will print out all of the key side of the hash equation. Normally those aren't too useful. It depends on what you're doing, you know. All right, and those are all part of this enumerable module, which is a bunch of code that's included into the definition of the hash class. And this will become more apparent next quarter when we deal with classes. All right, any other questions on any of this? It means it can be iterated over. Something that is a collection of something that I can cycle through and get each one at a time. That's all that means. I can enumerate them. I can list them out. I can pick up one off the conveyor belt at a time. It's a collection of items is all that is. All right. Isn't that fun? So what else can we do with hashes? I think that's just about it. That's useful for us anyway. The has key is going to be crucial for your next assignment. So, all right. Any questions on any of this? Isn't this fun? Everybody dreaming in Ruby now?
Not this quarter.
Not this quarter. Oh, that's good. All right. That's